What fresh produce means to me, it's seasonal. So it's at Christmas time, it's mangoes. In springtime, it's stone fruit. That's what fresh produce means to me.
Fresh food to me means food that doesn't have preservatives and stuff on it.
What are those green things?
It means healthiness, probably, like to me personally.
It means quite a lot to me because I don't want to actually have dirty food.
Health, variety.
Well, all food means everything to me.
Fresh food gives me the best food, best in nutrition and usually taste as well.
Something that doesn't come in a package of any sort, that hasn't been processed in any way beyond perhaps cutting it up.
Fresh food means healthier options, crisp flavors.
Apple!
I think food security is when you have access to a lot of food.
I think it's very important.
Just having fruits and vegetables available to us all the time, which is great.
Food security is when we have enough food for everyone.
Well, I think it means having a local source for the food. I think if COVID taught us anything is we need to be self-sufficient and not rely on imports.
Going to the grocery store and knowing that you're going to get everything that you need in one place.
Food security means having food available to everyone in WA as and when they need it, a constant supply.
I've never really thought about that actually.
I would not be happy because a lot of my meals are actually made of fruit and mostly veg actually.
Would you be sad? No, I'll have chocolate.
If we didn't have access to fresh food, we'd probably be a lot more unhealthy.
I think that would be bad. I think we'd have to rely on imports from other places where we maybe wouldn't know what sort of quality we're going to get.
You're either going to have to get it from other sources, so there's going to be price, food miles involved, or you're going to go without.
Personally, I think it'd impact me a lot because I do eat a lot of fruit and vegetables.
Well, I think a lot of businesses would go under.
Fresh food connects us all. Our food system is strong, but not invincible.
Climate, cost of production, and consumer expectations are challenging producers' profitability. Local food production is essential for food security. Food security is economic and lifestyle security.
Research that creates awareness and sparks action results in impact.
Innovation is already in the ground and growing. We're investing in smarter, more sustainable ways to grow.
It's public health. It's our shared resilience.
We invest in local food systems, we invest in our future.
Our mantra has always been, we are here to softly promote and softly build up all of the winemakers of the region to say, hang on, what you do is great, what you produce is fantastic, and what we drink is well worthy of anything, anywhere, not just in Australia, but around the world.
I'm planting varieties from Cyprus, which is amazing, and looking at doing other Greek varietals too. So I think by doing this, it's really going to keep our culture strong here in Australia, because obviously we're very far away from Greece.
I then got the opportunity to make wines that I thought were suited to this region, and then put a little bit of finesse in, oak treatments, etc., to make them softer and more approachable wines.
It's pretty cool to be able to provide high value wines at those lower price points.
There's certainly quite a few of our varieties that you probably wouldn't find elsewhere in Australia. If you do, it's probably from our grapes.
A Riverland wine is above and beyond what you'll find anywhere else.
You know, the whole objective
wants to be proud of the region we're from, so Riverland is stamped clearly on the bottle and always will be.
There's a lot of positivity amongst the smaller winemakers, passion and pride in what they're doing. They love to showcase the region. It's a wonderful region.
Yeah, I think, people will be pleasantly surprised by what they get out of Riverland.
Buy Australian made and you're backing local jobs, a stronger economy, and the way we live right here. Australian made right here.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. I have actually a bit of echo coming here, and that's sort of dropped out, so we'll see how we go. We're getting through. We have a new system that we didn't order. So you can imagine the excitement that is running through our veins at the moment. I think I could think of another word, but I won't. It's a family show. Quickly looking at what's happening around Australia, the federal government has failed to fund the extension of the East Grampians pipeline to 500 landholders battling to recover from the, I've just lost my part there we are, battling to recover from the recent drought and January's bushfires. It's very nice of the government. They're very caring, aren't they? The LNP have backflipped on a commitment made to the Senate just 7 days earlier and voted with Labor to scuttle a motion that would have relegated the government's problematic cash mandate regulations to history. Again, government's doing what they do, and politicians are doing what they do too. I think they call it porkies. A South Australian farmer has been fined, wait for it, $84,000 for clearing. Now, he cleared 112 hectares of native vegetation. That could have been a problem, but that were following several livestock deaths caused by falling tree limbs. I don't know who's in the right there. I think it's rather excessive though, isn't it? The chief executive of Australia's largest integrated almond company, Select Harvest Limited, has resigned. David Crisafulli was appointed as CEO and managing director at the end of 2022. And has overseen a significant transformation in the business, turning around $114.7 million profit loss in 2023 to a profit gain of $31.8 million in 2025. In a statement to the ASX, no reasons were given for the resignation. And finally, a landmark 57,000 hectare aggregation near Hay in the New South Wales Riverina region is for sale with a $200 million price plus price tag, while an Aussie buyer is circling a further 123,000 hectare portfolio near Deniliquin. Coming up next, we have got a very full show today. Hang around for about 15 seconds. The Queensland Premier wants the Commonwealth to fast-track environmental approvals to drill the Taroom Trough west of Brisbane in response to the fuel crisis, which I think is not such a bad idea if it is possible. Premier David Crisafulli says the central Queensland site poses a generational opportunity, with pilot wells already producing about 200 barrels of oil a day, which is then converted to diesel. Now, if developed, Taroom Trough would be the first oil field to be developed in Australia for half a century. We're going to talk today with analyst Kevin Morrison, an energy finance analyst for the Australian Gas at the Institute of Energy Economics and Financial Analysis. Kevin looks at issues facing the Australian LNG and gas sector. And prior to joining, Kevin worked for more than 30 years as a financial journalist for Reuters, Sydney Morning Herald, the Financial Times, and Argus Media. Half of this working period was covering the energy and resources sector, both in Australia and the UK. Kevin, thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much, Mike, for having me on your show.
Just fantastic. We do have had some issues. Hopefully we're sorting through these. It's, you know, when they create a new system for you, but don't tell you.
No.
It's anyway. It's we're living on the edge. Can you give a brief summary, please, about the extent of the problem facing Australian supply of oil and gas as a result of the war in Iran?
Well, yeah, it's really two stories. One, we have a problem with oil. We don't produce enough of our own oil, and so we're highly dependent on imported oil. Whereas it's completely the reverse for gas. We have so much gas that what we produce, we sell 80% of it overseas through LNG, and so. So the problem right now, what we've seen with the conflict in the Middle East, it's created both a problem for the supply of gas as well as oil, you know, because that region is a big producer of both. So the concern in Australia really is our fuel security. As I said, we import so much. Just to give you some context of that, our oil production last year was actually a 57-year low. So it's the lowest it's been since the late 1960s. And that only accounts for about 7% of all the oil we consume each day. So I'll just give you, I don't want to give you too many numbers, but the one is what we consume each day is about 1 million barrels a day. Okay, so Queensland, that is around a quarter of that. And what we mainly consume is diesel. In fact, 54% of what we consume each day is diesel. So we really are after diesel. And the problem is our two refineries that we have left, they produce more petrol than diesel. So we only can produce about 13% of the diesel that we use each day. And so therefore, you know, almost 90% of that diesel has to be imported. So that's the real main problem.
Do you think the full impact and the chaos it will present as the timeline moves forward, do you think the government and politicians really understand the severity of the issue, especially to those on the land?
Well, this problem with the oil energy security has been really in the making for the last 25 years. Because at the beginning of this century, that's when we were more or less self-sufficient. But our production has declined while our consumption has gone up. And so therefore, we're just importing more and more. So in fact, last year, we spent over $50 billion importing oil. We don't really sort of talk too much about that. We like to talk about how much export revenue we get for exporting LNG and coal. But yeah, that's a cost that our consumer and also just from the security aspect, because one of the things we were supposed to do is to have enough inventory, enough stockpiles, and we're a member of the International Energy Agency, and they advise their members to have 90 days of stocks. Australia has never really done that. We had 50 days. And so therefore, when the world is facing a supply crunch, those with higher stockpiles could probably wear it out a bit easier. So this is why, you know, we're seeing the Prime Minister go to this energy agency to try and secure the imports that go elsewhere.
Tell us about, and hopefully I've got the pronunciation right, Taroom Trough. Tell us about that, and is it oil and gas, or is it just gas, or is it just oil, or the whole package?
It appears to be a bit of both. I mean, we have to sort of. I know a lot has been said, and it's from the Queensland politicians. I mean, it seems like it's going to save Australia, but we've got to remember we're just at the exploration stage, so we don't actually quite know what's in the ground, how much is there, and whether it's commercial. So there is a lot of, so obviously in order to prove that, a lot of drilling has to take place first, and we'll have to see the results. But so far there's, as you mentioned in the introduction, that there is this pilot project that Shell is doing, so that's 200 barrels a day, but I just said we consume a million barrels a day, so it's got a bit of a shortfall there, but nevertheless you've got to start somewhere. But also what has been sort of come out is that it's the oil that is there, and there is supposed to be a lot of gas, but the oil that is there, it's what they call a light oil, so that's probably good for making petrol. But it comes back to my point about diesel. It can make some diesel. So just if it is light oil, and this is still very, very speculative, it could probably each barrel could make about 50% of it could make petrol, and then about 25% of it could make diesel. So that it still doesn't address our major problem, which is diesel. So we might be okay for petrol, but it's still going to be a bit of an issue. It needs a different type of crude in order to that we could make diesel. And as I said, our refineries aren't built to produce diesel.
I'm just thinking if they were to extract the oil, is it fracking? You could just, by the way, I haven't got an issue with fracking at the moment, but is it fracking? And if it is, do you see issues?
Yeah, so the Taroom Trough, it effectively lies where the potential resources are somewhere between 3 and 4 kilometres below the surface. Now that's below, because it actually sort of straddles some of the area that we're extracting the coal seam gas from. It just lies that much deeper because those coal seam gas beds, they're sort of anywhere between 300 to 400 metres down to about 1,200 metres. So this is going almost sort of 3 to 4 times deeper than what we're extracting the coal seam gas. So we'll have to. It's a different type of drilling, and it will be fracking because what the geology is that it's what is known as tight oil or tight gas, and so it has to be. It's kind of still locked in a rock. And so it has to be shattered, and the only way you can do that is fracking, and the only way you can do fracking is using a lot of water. So the question is, where are they going to take the water from? You could either take it from the rivers, you could take it from the Great Artesian Basin, or the recycled water, each of which Queensland farmers use. So I would imagine they would have something to say about that.
Yeah, I think if I was a farmer right now, I would feel like I was under attack. If you look at Victoria and right around the country, again, politicians seem to say, we understand, we love farmers, we know how tough it is, and they don't understand farmers, they don't know how tough it is. And if you interfere with the water supply, you might as well just give up the ghost. Now, if the farming sector decided to say that's it, and there's reports that 25% of those growing fruit and veggies for the next season aren't going to grow them because it's just not worth it. That also then will impact supermarkets and inflation and so forth. It just goes on. So what? Okay, just say if you were the Prime Minister, Kevin, and you,
I don't think they'd let me near that. Yeah, but anyway,
I'm going to put you in the hot seat here. Okay, you had a choice, and you knew it impacted. Either if you didn't do it, it's going to impact the country, and if you did do it, it's going to impact the country. Okay, what would you do?
Well, I think we have to prioritise food. I just don't know there is any alternative food. Whereas energy, there are alternatives. We're seeing a much more uptake of electric vehicles, and I'm sure there will come a day. We're already seeing larger vehicles run on batteries. We're starting to see that in the mining sector, not so much in the agricultural sector, but if we look out another 10, 15 years, I'm sure it will happen. And so there are alternatives on the energy front. And so therefore, I'd always prioritise food over energy.
Okay, another one. This is the hot seat. We'll rename this segment the hot seat. What about nuclear energy?
Well, so far, I mean, again, it all comes down to economics, and I guess my default reference is the UK. I mean, I'm tell by my accent that's where I'm from originally, and you know that they've got a nuclear plant there. The costs are completely blown out, and that's going to be then sort of passed on to the consumers. So it's elevated what the price of electricity is going to be. So if the economics, if they can get the economics of nuclear down, then you know it should. You know, there should be a greater take up of it, but you know, so far the economics are still quite challenging,
and the electricity prices keep going up, which I won't go to down that path at the moment because we haven't got all the time in the world to talk about it. But it is very, very interesting, isn't it? Kevin, if somebody wants to find out more about you or what you do, how do they do that?
Yeah, we've got a website. So the organisation work for IEFA. That's the shorthand for so yeah, IEFA.org, and then you can find our work on there, and then you can find a link to me. I'm also on LinkedIn as well. You know, Kevin Morrison, and yeah, I'll be happy to continue this discussion with anyone, any of your viewers.
Isn't it interesting? Just as a side note, the water. I mean, it's under attack too. You look at all the data centres popping up all over the globe and Australia. It's a very rare commodity, isn't it?
Yeah, there's been so many announcements. It's really hard to grab all what is real and what is just an announcement. You know, I can remember back in the .com days when when the internet first came along, and there were so many announcements then, and it was a sort of similar issue about the how much energy or electricity that was going to use, and you know, it was just a lot of inflated numbers. So it is quite serious, and we've seen examples in other countries. I think Ireland is one example where there's a big agricultural sector there, and and you think Ireland's is it's not short of water. It rains a fair bit, but they're even having concerns about the amount of water those data centers are using. So if it's affecting somewhere that rains a lot and it's got plenty of water, then a country like Australia, which has got a lot of dry regions, and it's a more of a a smaller resource, then we should be concerned.
And nothing like a giant data centre in your next to your backyard. So it always brings you that feeling of warmth, and then you glow in the dark at night, maybe. Kevin Morrison, thank you so much for your time. This is the Country Telegraph.
Experience the ultimate day out at the Mildura Field Days happening on May 15th and 16th at the Mildura Racecourse. Discover a vast array of exhibits, from home gardening tools to the latest in large-scale farm machinery. Explore lifestyle, leisure, home products and services, and much more. Don't miss this opportunity to learn, explore and have fun. Enjoy free entertainment, hands-on pets, live music and delicious food. Mark your calendar and join us for an unforgettable experience at the Mildura Field Days.
Stephen Tripp is President of Australians for Better Government and Vice President of Let's Rethink Renewables and host of, according to Stephen, I keep mentioning this and always tells the truth, the world's greatest podcast, the host of Commanding the Narrative. Now we're going to talk to Stephen about that, if he's telling the truth, and also about whether our leaders have woken up to the calamity facing our economy and the reasons for this. First of all, Stephen Tripp, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me back on, and hello to your audience.
Thank you so much. Now tell me, first of all, the most important thing, is it the biggest podcast in the world, or are you number two?
I wish I was. I know I'm behind you. You're the king of podcasting and media. So it's always a pleasure to come and learn under the learning tree that you provide here.
Actually, I find that interesting. Just on that note, with TNT, we were hitting 20 million downloads on the podcast, which isn't too bad.
Yeah,
now, tell us about how our primary producers and the regions are faring at the moment.
Look, they're really struggling. They're under the pump in all different areas. This fuel crisis is just compounding the issues that they were already facing. I mean, I did a tour out to Dunedoo and Wellington and Geary and those areas just last month. And look, I spoke to a lot of people out there. A lot of people are really struggling with this renewable energy rollout. They're facing wind turbines on their property. They're facing massive solar projects all around them, like the one in Wellington. We got some drone footage of that project, and it just the scale of it is just absolutely incredible. And not to mention the high voltage transmission lines that are crisscrossing their properties. Now, a lot of these projects are under construction, so they're also taking resources away from these areas. They're taking water away from the farmlands because a lot of these projects are very water intensive. Even things like granite and gravel, locals can't get that because these big projects are taking all those resources as well. So our rural areas were already under the pump. They deal with normal things like drought and things like that as well. And then this fuel crisis comes along, and I'm hearing a lot of reports from people that I speak to out in rural communities, whether it be in Queensland or here in New South Wales, they can't get diesel. So this is a massive issue because we're looking at this as through the sphere of the present day. But if farmers can't get diesel, then they can't operate their machinery. They can't sow the soil. So guess what happens in a year or 2 years' time? We're not going to have food on the shelves, and we might have to get our food from other countries where we should be a food bowl, at least of Asia. So look, this comes down to weak and ineffectual leadership that we've seen from both sides of politics for a long time. We should have a 90-day fuel security supply in this country. I mean, how hard is it, really? I mean, anyone that operates a business or anything like that knows that they have to have infantry on the shelves ready to go for the time when they'll need it. It's the same with our fuel security. How hard would it have been for Chris Bowen or the ministers that came before him to have fuel ready to go for Australians in the event of a catastrophe this is a catastrophe if we run out of fuel. And we should be refining fuel as well. I mean, there's so many things, the preventative measures that the government could have done, and they've just been asleep at the wheel. And now we're paying the price.
Is there enough recognition of it in Canberra, even amongst the major parties who have played a role of us being in this position that they've put us in?
Look, we get distracted by the personalities in politics, and what we're seeing right now is this distraction of One Nation. Now, it is a story. One Nation is surging in the polls. We weren't sure whether it was real polling or not, but we saw in the South Australian election that it played out exactly as the polls were indicating. So One Nation is generating all this support. There's a lot of attention on Pauline Hanson. There's a lot of attention on Barnaby Joyce and all the figures within One Nation. But what it's really doing is taking the focus off the Labor government. And the same thing can be said about the Liberal Party. Now, no one's listening to the Liberal Party anymore. Their brand is broken, and it's almost like we're seeing the beginning of the end of the Liberal Party. Now, what that does is taking the focus off the Labor government. And this is a big deal. While and a lot of the parties on the right side of politics are now taking aim at One Nation because they see One Nation as being the party that's in their way. If you go to the Liberal Party's social media, you see they're taking a lot of pot shots at One Nation. That didn't happen before. A lot of the other minor parties, like Jared Rennick's party, they love attacking One Nation for, I don't know why, but they do. But instead of attacking Labor, they're attacking their own side. I mean, they may disagree on some issues, but on big issues, they generally agree. Now, while that's happening, we are facing one of the worst governments we have ever had in this country. The inflation at the moment is out of control, and it's due to the reckless spending of government. And what happens? There's no accountability on government to rein in spending. We just cop it with higher interest rates. Everyday Australians have seen the steepest decline in disposable income in any country of the developed world. So we're facing it tough economically. As I mentioned, the interest rates, electricity prices are going up. The Labor government broke their promise of a $275 reduction in energy prices. Instead, energy prices are going up, despite the fact that renewables are supposedly the cheapest form of energy, and that's being rolled out across the country. We're not seeing any benefit from that. There was the expenses scandal, there was the ISIS bribes cover-up, and then there was the Bondi attack, which completely and clearly showed the weakness and ineffectual leadership of Anthony Albanese. But none of this stuff is effectively getting attacked or talked about because the right side of politics is too busy fighting with itself.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to say the least. We've heard from the some of the peak or the ag peak groups, the Farmers Federation and stuff, and land transport orgs have made their voice known. What about the other, the other groups, the other business groups, the ones that basically have the ears of the Prime Minister?
Look, I mean, there are a lot of lobby groups in the country, and you hear from politicians, you speak to them, whether they're in Canberra or Macquarie Street or other state parliaments around the country, they've just got lobbyists swirling around them all the time. And a lot of these lobbyists are multinational companies or big corporations or cashed up interests. Some of them are even foreign interests, and we see a lot of money coming in from other countries that lobby our government. But it's the little guy that gets put under the thumb. I mean, for people out in rural communities, they really don't have a say. The structure of our government has a big role to play in that as well. I mean, if you look at the parliament, whether it be the federal parliament or state parliaments, you've got this collection of seats all congested in city areas. But if you're living out in Dubbo or Parkes or somewhere like that, you have one representative that covers this vast, array of area, and that you got one voice in Parliament, even if you do elect someone that really wants to represent you. So that's a big, massive problem. And a lot of the lobby groups and the community groups that are out in rural communities, they don't get any traction. I mean, it's very, very hard for them to get media or get a politician to listen to them or take them seriously. We're dealing with communities with a very low population. Some of these populations only have a few thousand people. They have issues that are very important that they're facing, but they don't have that groundswell of support because there are small populations in their community. So no one's really willing to listen to a community of a few thousand people when you've got big groups in the city, teal groups or greens groups or whatever that lean that way politically, and you've got hundreds of thousands of members behind them. So that's what the politicians look at. They look at how many members you have and how much money's behind you and how glossy your brochure is. And for people living out in country areas that really just want to focus on their farms and their properties and things like that, it's time consuming and takes up a lot of resources. So it's very, very difficult. And I mean, if it's not for platforms like yourself getting information out there, and there's not too many platforms out there that are interested in speaking to rural communities and hearing what their challenges are.
Yeah, they're not like us, we're rough and ready.
Yeah,
we'd be out there with our gloves on.
I'm still waiting to drag you out to Wellington or Dubbo one day, mate, and show you the wind turbines.
Actually, tell me about the Wellington Solar Project.
Mate, as I said, I went out there not long ago. I think it was last month or the end of February, and the scale of it is just unbelievable. No one would believe it if they haven't been out there to see it for themselves. There was a 9news.com.au article that was put out where it showed some drone footage. I think it was the One Nation Party that took that drone footage, so credit to them. They went out there and had a look as well. But it's really hard to get that footage out there so people can see it. So, I mean, how do you get people out to Wellington to see these projects? A lot of it's out of sight, out of mind. But it basically stretches as far as the eye can see. And it looks like water. It looks like there's a big, massive lake there, but no, it's black glass, it's solar panels. And the problem is, if you get a hailstorm or a fire, they had a fire at the Wellington Solar Project, that energy, that supposed energy source, gets wiped out. So our energy system is completely vulnerable to the elements. It's vulnerable to big storms. It's vulnerable to fires. And what happens then? Well, I mean, we could be facing blackouts. And what I saw on the way out there, we drove out there from Sydney, we passed the Mount Piper coal plant. I mean, you blink and you miss it. I mean, if you'd look the other direction for a minute or so, it was gone. This is the problem. The energy density of coal is so minute compared to the vast scale that we need to take up with wind and solar projects. And this is only in its infancy of being rolled out. There's many more projects like this that are going to be rolled out across our rural communities and productive farmland. And a lot of people don't even realise. And that's going to be a huge problem in the future, because as the Victorian government admitted in one of their reports in 2022, to get to net zero with onshore wind and solar, it would take 70% of Victoria's agricultural land to get there. So this is the vast array of land that we are covering with these projects.
I would like to say, well, who cares? In a few months' time, Jacinta Allen has an excellent chance of being ousted, except for one thing. Jess Wilson and the LNP there are as bad as they're like a feather in a cyclone. But if you look at the history, and you would agree with this because you study politics, here's something a bit left field before we wind this up. How do you fix Victoria's political system?
Look, the Victorians have to fix it themselves, and it's who they vote for. I mean, that's right. I mean, if they want to keep voting in Labor governments, they get what they get. I mean, that's just democracy, isn't it? And look, I mean, I don't think the Liberals are too much better. I think a lot of people were looking to Jess Wilson for some hope. But after what the Liberal Party did to Moira Deeming, I mean, she still is in there. I mean, she ultimately got up in the end. But the fact that they didn't pre-select Moira Deeming in the beginning means that it clearly shows they haven't learnt the lessons of their previous failures. And I think a big decline originally of the Liberal Party was what they did to Moira Deeming in the beginning, when they kicked her out of the party in the beginning. And I think a lot of people looked at that, and they looked at Moira Deeming and they said, Moira Deeming is exactly the type of Liberal that we want, and her own party is trying to kick her out. And they tried to do it again just recently by not pre-selecting her. Now, she's still in there, she's still fighting. I mean, a lot of people question why she bothers, but obviously she still believes in the Liberal Party. She's one of the few people out there that actually do. And look, the Liberal Party are not learning. They are definitely not learning. And the big question of the Victorian election is what's going to happen? Will the Victorians look to Liberal and Labor again to fix their issues, or will they branch out and will they test someone new like One Nation? I know Warren Pickering is down there. He leads One Nation down in Victoria, a very good man, former military man. He's exactly the type of person that you would want in Parliament. I'm not endorsing One Nation, but I do like good individual candidates, and I definitely endorse Warren Pickering. But Victorians have to look at their local candidates, and they have to do their own research, and they have to look at who the good people are, the everyday people that have some experience, not the political staffers or union hacks or lawyers that usually get put up by the Liberal and Labor Party that have no real experience in running a business or facing the pressures of everyday Australians.
Yeah, I totally agree. And with the name Pickering, it's army.
He's a good man.
Now, if somebody wants to find out more about you, to sit back, watch and enjoy Commanding the Narrative, how do they do that?
Just head to the website commandingthenarrative.com. It's the best place to go.
Absolutely fantastic. Stephen Tripp, thank you so much. And thank you for being patient. I told you after 15 times we would get you to air.
Mate, it was worth it, and we got there eventually.
Well, it was worth it. You and I just talk. I mean, we're chatting away. It's fantastic. By the way, out of a rating of just two things, a rating of out of 10, what would you give the Victorian Labor government?
Look, I mean, I generally don't support Labor, so my rating is going to be very, very low. I mean, I don't think they deserve a rating. I mean, they deserve to be kicked out of government, especially after what they did with the state during COVID. But hey, I'm here in New South Wales. I don't get a say. I don't get a vote. It's up to the Victorian people and how they want to vote. If they like living under a Labor government, then that's up to them. But it's really up to the people to decide who they want to put into power. So Victorians really have to do their research and make a hard decision.
Yeah, I was going to ask you then, what do you think of the opposition? But you didn't even answer the first one, so I'm not going to get one. Good on you.
Mate, it's not up to me, so I can't tell people who to vote for.
Yeah, but you're a scholar when it comes to politics. But next time.
Mate, look, I wouldn't even know who to vote for in New South Wales at this point. So
they're pretty bad, aren't
Victoria.
Maybe Mr. Pickering could move to New South Wales too.
Mate, I think you should have Warren on the show if you want to talk about Victoria. He's a good guy, and he'd be worth having a chat to, I think.
We'll send some Morse code to Jen. All right, thank you very much. Stephen Tripp, this is the Country Telegraph.
They come for the mountains, the adventure, the wide open spaces. But it's the people who truly make the Grampians and Wimmera Mallee shine. The warm welcomes, the familiar faces, the way you make them feel right at home. Invite your loved ones to visit and help our region thrive. Because our greatest attraction is you. Plan their stay today at visitgrampians.com.au/you.
To remote Australian communities, the Royal Flying Doctor Service is their lifeline, delivering the finest care to the furthest corner. Now, we're going even further. Introducing Bushlink, an easy-to-use online platform that puts care at your fingertips, helping you take control of your primary healthcare right from your phone, tablet or computer. Bushlink lets you book your clinic appointments when you want to. And if something changes, you can reschedule or cancel without having to make a single call. You can see all your upcoming appointments in one place, receive SMS confirmations, reminders, and if plans change, we'll let you know. You can even message us back and stay connected with your RFDS team. Have a question? Want to check if your regular doctor is coming? Bushlink will give you all the information you need. You'll even have access to forms you can fill in before appointments, all to maximise face-to-face time with your RFDS clinician on the ground come clinic time. You'll also receive helpful health advice and education. Bushlink puts the power in your hands, giving you more information, more flexibility, more support and greater control of your healthcare wherever you are. Simply visit rfdsbushlink.com.au for more information or to sign up today. Bushlink, a new link in the chain of care.
Dry conditions in the northern tablelands are beginning to bite, turning paddocks into dust.
Farmers around Ashford haven't seen decent rain in months, and now they say they're worried about how they'll get through the months heading into winter.
Dry and dusty as far as the eye can see, landowners around Ashford say it's been over 160 days without a substantial downpour.
You just don't know where it's going to end, and at 160 days now with a grim outlook of rain, it's just not having a good morale in my community.
Susanna Simpson is one farmer waiting for rain. She's trying to bring attention to how many on the land are struggling through interviews with her neighbours to social media clips of her daughter doing a rain dance.
It's just a beautiful way, I suppose, to show how much we're needing the rain. And the little girl, you know, singing a rain dance and the sprinkler going, and in a dry, you can see the backgrounds, it's so dry.
The support of groups like Aussie Hay Runners has been vital as people run out of feed, sending their stock to the sale yards.
A lot of people calling me for community support and charity support and knowledge of that, and mental health in some people is declining.
Creeks and dams across the district have been dry since Christmas. The latest DPI forecast has most of the northern tablelands expected to fall into the drought-affected category by the end of May. Local MP and Shadow Ag Minister Brendan Moylan says he's yet to hear from the government on what can be done to support communities like Ashford.
I've made a series of representations to the Minister for Agriculture in regional New South Wales about drought support and the fact that at the moment there is no drought support for transport of fodder, stock, or water for that matter.
In a statement, Minister Tara Moriarty says the government has been introducing new drought products and services, including low-interest loans, $43.2 million for farm business resilience, and extending the Drought Adoption Officer program.
The severity is getting worse, and I think the outlook for winter, we need a strategy and we need it to start rolling out now to help support these people. People are just trying to keep their core stock.
James Carter, 7 News.
Ashford, yes, it's a terrible, terrible drought at the moment. Aussie hay runners were mentioned there. And speaking about Aussie hay runners, we're going to talk about them. They were founded by Linda Widdop, bringing hope to farmers in their time of need, organising deliveries of invaluable feed in response to drought and natural disasters. Now, Linda founded Aussie Hay Runners in 2019, starting out with just 4 trucks, delivering hay to help farmers feed their livestock. The voluntary organisation now has more than 70 trucks it can call on, clocking up millions of kilometres, delivering over 90,000 bales of fodder to farmers needing a helping hand. The work of the Aussie Hay Runners volunteers not only provides relief for livestock, but also raises morale amongst those distressed communities and families. And today we're going to talk to Linda's right-hand man, Jake Baker, about Aussie Hay Runners. Jake, thanks for joining us.
No worries, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
We finally got you on too. We keep telling everybody we had a new system put in, and they didn't tell us, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, no, we had a few problems, I think, the last few days, but here we are now, so.
Tell us about Aussie Hay Runners. I mean, I know you're younger than I am, so I'll go to heaven or hell before you do. But you guys are just for a farmer, you must be like the angel, the good angel coming to help them out. Tell us about what you do and some of the hurdles that you've been facing.
Yeah, so basically what we try and do is accumulate as much donated fodder as we can sort of possibly get our hands on. We are trying to get hay into as many people. We did a lot last year to the floods. We're trying to work on helping a fair few people in the Gwarda region and stuff that are recovering from bushfires and still haven't seen a drop of rain since. We're looked after by RAA from New South Wales that do help us make all this possible. They definitely allow us to try and get fodder to where it needs to be, but yeah, we still need to get a lot more up there.
Yeah, you certainly do. And Linda, I mean, there's some of your trucks about to come out in the background. Does Linda ingest batteries every night because she's got this energy? She just doesn't stop. Did she ever sleep?
Nah, so for people that don't know Linda, she's a 5'0" pocket rocket, as people would like to say. She works a full-time job, still manages to, every day organise up to about 74 trucks I think we've got now. She takes all the phone calls, deals with the government alongside her daughter that's doing a lot of the bookwork for us now. She's definitely got a lot of energy, and I don't know how the batteries keep up with her, to be honest.
I know, it must exhaust you just watching her. Hey, tell me about your the Easter campaign. How did that go?
Easter was very successful, so we ended up getting 29 truckloads, so roughly 870 bales up to the Gwarda LGA region. So they're still in recovery of bushfire. They, like I said, haven't seen a drop of rain since the bushfire, and they've lost sheds, fodder, paddocks, fences, some even houses. It's a bit of a desperate times up there, and the problem is for them, they are quite remote, so it is a struggle for them just to hop in a ute and go down the street and get a bale of hay for their cattle. So we sort of have to try and step in and get it to them.
Okay, let's talk about the nitty-gritty. I mean, it sounds like a very complex and involved foundation. Just getting the bales of hay from one point to the next point. Tell us what it's all about, how it happens, some of the logistical nightmares that you might face.
So it's not too bad. Linda's all got it very well organised. So yeah, we rely heavily on donated fodder. So a lot of people will call in and donate what they sort of can. People from the south that have got much better conditions. So we do allocate trucks, and drivers have got spare time to head out, pick up that donated fodder, and yeah, we put it all together with a meeting place, and yeah, we head on up to where we need to go.
Tell us about some of the priorities that you have planned, some of the things you are going to do over the next few months.
So yeah, like I was sort of saying, we are sort of looked after by RAA, which we're very thankful for fire and flood, but we are experiencing a lot of drought in areas like Ashford and that sort of stuff. So we're trying to get more and more trucks there. Obviously, we have to do that out of our own pockets and off full donations. So whoever does donate fodder or money that does allow us to get to these areas. So we're trying to push to try and do a few more fundraisers, things like that, to try and get more fodder to these people.
What about donations? How important is it for the public to support what you do? And what you're doing is you're helping these guys, one, get through tough times, but to feed Australians.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, we are heavily reliant on donations. So all our volunteers are fantastic people. Obviously, they dive pretty deep into their pockets, so they allocate their trucks, their time, their fuel, the whole lot. So yeah, for us to receive donated fodder is huge. So we can at least try and get it up there. It's a bit of a push, but I think we're getting on track now, and hopefully a few more people jump on board, and we need to try and push for what we can sort of get, but at the same time, people can we live in a pretty tough society at the moment, and the way the economy is, it's sort of hard for people to donate, but yeah, what we do get, we definitely much appreciate.
Has the fuel crisis added any angst at the moment?
Yeah, mate, it definitely has. So obviously the price of diesel has affected all the trucks and drivers. Obviously it costs us a fair bit more to get to where we need to go, and yeah, like the RAA in New South are absolutely fantastic, and they're very generous to us for fire and for flood, and they do supply us with a bit of a fuel subsidy to allow us to keep the trucks rolling, and yeah, to all the drivers and volunteers of Aussie Hay Runners to still rock up every day, even though fuel is the way it is, and even the cost of just running the trucks is not cheap anymore. So no. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, it's we all need to dip into our pockets, because one day we'll want to help, and that's what, I don't know how you feel now, but used to make Australia this great country. You had everybody's back. Do you think that's sort of lacking at the moment? We sort of need a bit of a reality tablet.
Yes and no. I think like the way the economy is, the cost of living, it is harder for people to dig into their pockets. But yeah, everyone sort of, I suppose, has to understand where their food comes from day to day and from night to night, and the steak that goes on their plate, or the lamb, or whatever it might be. We still need these farmers to keep going. But in saying all that, we definitely we've actually been fortunate enough. We had a young group of young and upcoming boys. They're in their early 20s that have actually decided to jump on board with us, and completely out of their own pockets, they've thrown some utes at us, which is fantastic, because unfortunately the trucks are really good, and we can get the quantity up there, but we just can't always get to everybody. There's definitely places we can't get to with trucks, so having this group of young fellas with their utes alongside us, being able to get into these hard to reach places, is definitely helping us. So yeah, to see them in their young 20s out there giving it a go and helping us out, that goes to show there is still definitely.
If somebody wants to donate, or put their hand in their pocket, or give a hand, got a truck lying around, how do they get hold of Aussie Hay Runners?
So the best thing to do would be jump on our social medias, Facebook, Instagram and TikTok. So on all our Facebook posts, Instagram and TikToks, there is a QR code and a bank account number. Otherwise, there is a phone number for Linda if you're wanting to reach out to donate fodder, and we will be able to organise a truck to come out. And everything that is donated definitely comes with a tax receipt. So for people that want one, just make sure they put that in the reference, and we'll have a tax receipt to them.
Yeah, Linda's doing a great job. Jake, you are too. You filled in for her. But next time we'll have Linda on. I know that we had trouble connecting with her phone, but again, your organisation, Aussie Hay Runners, you are all saints. You are all what this country needs, and I appreciate what you do. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Jake Baker there, here on the Country Telegraph. Coming up next, we'll go to the leave the trucks, and we'll go and talk horses.
Australia's biggest outback music festival is back. From the 20th to 22nd of August 2026, the Broken Hill Mundi Bash returns for 3 epic days under the wide open skies of the outback. Get ready for a massive lineup featuring the Teskey Brothers, John Stevens, John Butler, Boy and Bear, Baby Animals, Jessica Mowboy, The Whitlams, Leo Sayer, Tim Finn, Richard Clapton, Troy Cassadaly, Chocolate Starfish, Furnace and the Fundamentals, 1920 and many more. It's more than a festival, it's a one-of-a-kind adventure. Camp out on the red dirt plains of the iconic Mundi Plains, just beyond Broken Hill, and experience a truly unforgettable family and dog-friendly festival. The Mundi Bash. Tickets on sale now.
Got broken sternum and 4 broken ribs.
To me, the RFDS is a very good help for not only Anango, but everybody in the outback. Dentist is just one of them.
You know, I said goodbye to people in my head.
Sort of worked out pretty quickly I wasn't going to be able to deal with it by myself, you know, knowing that airstrip had to get sorted out so RFDS could land safely, you know.
We got this Royal Flying Doctor. To me, it's arrogant, it's really good support. We're sort of supporting each other, make things a better community here.
I felt like it hadn't happened, like I felt like I was fine. I was in a lot of pain. Like my head and my eyes just like throbbing. And then seeing it in the mirror, I was like, oh my God.
Okay, that was what we're going to talk about. A great festival coming up on the 16th to the 19th of April, which is only a couple of days away. The Man from Stowey River Bush Festival. Now, Nicole Martin has had a career in the health industry for 30 years, working as a qualified occupational therapist across rural and remote regions, and quickly developed an interest in management. And she's done a magnificent job. The Man from Snowy River Bush Festival, held in Corryong, which is her hometown, commenced while she was at university. Despite this and living across the state, she never missed an event. So when she was asked to join the board, no hesitation, and has been the chairperson and general manager since September 2024, and has worked passionately with her team to make it one of the best festivals going. First of all, got a welcome to the cameras, light action and cameras. Nicole, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Tell us about the festival. I mean, we all know the man from Snowy River, and it's really, I have to say, it's really nice that stuff that I grew up with. You know, we had horses then. We didn't have cars. I'm so damn old. But it takes us back to the roots of Australia, doesn't it?
Correct, Mike. I mean, that footage at the start still gives me goosebumps that you showed, and you're absolutely right. The whole aim of our festival is to showcase the bush heritage of this area and make sure that we don't lose all of those traditional bush skills. So we have a number of challenge events that, 100 adult competitors, and we also have juniors and striplings that compete in 7 events over the weekend to showcase all of those bush skills and make sure that those skills are retained, as well as hundreds of other events that are going on at our festival over the weekend.
What about the organisation of this? I mean, you haven't just got people, you've got those 4-legged critters. Now, 2 things here. One, that would have been probably difficult, but 2, which is the more intelligent?
My staff are possibly listening to me, Mike, so I better be careful what I say.
They're here.
Look, I mean, have a look at that dog right there. That's a pretty damn intelligent Border Collie that you're showcasing. I think they probably win the prize, but look, the average cost of the horses of our challenge competitors is extreme, so we really do have to look after those animals. But, I've got a great team of staff behind me as well that make sure this event runs and spends hours year round, making sure that, the 20-odd thousand people that come to our small township of 1,500 for 4 days have the best time they can possibly have.
Okay, tell us about the events, who are going to be there. We put up next to you, if you look at this thing now, you'll see there's a banner next to you. Tell us about the events and what we can expect, and from start to go.
Yeah, sure. So the entire festival is geared around Banjo Patterson's poem, of course. Mm-hmm. So we have a live reenactment with gentled wild horses that goes on. We have poetry. We have live stage acts every evening. We have an art exhibition. What don't we have? We have ute shows. We have a sideshow alley. We have markets. But of course, that's all wrapped around the original purpose for the Man from Snowy River Festival, which commenced 31 years ago. And that is around the horsemanship and the amazing things that the men and women of across Australia and can do with their horses. So there's 7 events. We have traditional horseshoeing. We have the saddle pack event where they have to, pack a saddle and showcase going in our mimicking bush area. We have a cross-country event where they need to complete jumps that aren't your average pony club jumps whilst cracking their stock whip at targets. We have a bareback event, which is extreme, and the girls that set that up are just amazing. And there's a freestyle event during that as well, which really, I think the champions of that are our juniors because they've got no fear, right? So you can find them skipping their horse's tail. You can find them doing somersaults off the back of their horse. Some really pretty amazing things to watch. And then each evening we're partnered with Extreme Broncs. And so Friday night we have both bronc horses and bulls. And then on the Saturday night we have their major final of the year. And last year at that event we had over 10,000 people packed around that arena that you showed earlier, and the atmosphere is just phenomenal. And then Sunday it is totally topped off by our finals, where our open competitors have 6 minutes to catch and break a gentled wild horse. And they also, the second part of their final is to ride a bronc horse in their stock saddle whilst cracking a whip. Yeah.
Lordy Lord.
Yeah, correct.
And they call this fun.
It is fun. It's great fun. I've been saying to visitors all day today in the office, because they say, what are the things we need to see? And I said, you need to come for 3 years in a row to make sure you see everything. Please don't try and see it all in 1 year, because there is just so much action that you'll wear yourself out and you won't enjoy yourself.
Incredible. What about there'll be libations there, I would imagine? Well, indeed so.
Say that again, sorry,
libations. Will there be drinking?
Yes, of course,
beer?
absolutely. Yep, there's the Brumby Bar, and you can't beat that, and that's right near the live stage where all of those live acts that you put up earlier will be on. So, we have live music from sort of lunchtime through to 1 a.m. when our bar closes up. Lots of dancing, lots of fun, and for all ages. That's the beautiful thing about it. The early stage acts are family orientated, and sort of for our grey nomads into the rock and roll, and some of the legends that we've had around for a long time, like Danny Fegan, that play into the night and make sure we rock and roll.
Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you, because we had before Aussie hay runners, and Linda Widdop, she's an amazing person, got this energy. You seem to have come from, you seem to be sisters with a different mother. Where do you find the energy and what drives you?
Mike, I really don't know this year because I was lucky enough to be a recipient of their hay. Our property got burnt out by the bushfires here in Lucyvale. But you know what? My motto is, if you're not willing to be part of the solution, you forfeit the right to complain. And I'm so passionate about my community. And if we don't have this festival, our town won't survive. So I put my hand up and said, put me in charge. We need to make sure this festival's safe, grows every year, improves every year. So I work really hard with my team, use the feedback from our patrons. And whilst we can't get bigger because of the size of our town, we can certainly get better. And so, that's what I'm about. I love it.
You'll go to heaven. I'll get there before you, but I won't go there. I'll knock on the door and they'll say, you would penny back. You're like a bad penny. If somebody wants to find out more about this, how do they do that?
Yeah, look, jump on our website. So Man from Snow River Bush Festival. We've got 87,000 followers on there, so make sure you get on the right one. We've also got an app, and on the website, if you're thinking, maybe I want to come next year, jump on our website and there is a live stream on there where you can watch some of the events and get a little taster so that we make sure we see you in 2027.
Absolutely. I have to say, you will see me next year.
I look forward to it, Mike.
One part of the joy that we get from doing what we're doing is that we're discovering ourselves. Australia, from the field days to the shows to festivals like this, it shows you that Australia really is a place of just unique beauty and I suppose community, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we're attracting international patrons now that are coming to the event. So that's pretty special to showcase, Australia's traditions and history to the international market. Yeah. Absolutely
brilliant. And Nicole Mountain, thank you so much for your time. We will talk again, doing a great job. And one of Australia's great festivals. So
good on you, Mike. Thanks for your time.
Take care. This is the Country Telegraph.
The king may rule over land and sea. The lord may live right royally. The soldier ride in pomp and pride. The sailor roam over ocean wide. But this or that, whatever befall, the farmer, he must feed them all. The writer thinks, the poet sings, the craftsman fashion wondrous things. The doctor heals, the lawyer pleads, the miner follows, the precious leads. But this or that, whatever befall, the farmer, he must feed them all. The merchant, he may buy and sell, the teacher do his duty well. But men may toil through busy days, or men may stroll through pleasant ways. From king to beggar,
heavy rainfall and possible flooding for northern Queensland over the next couple of days as the remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Mila move across the Cape York Peninsula. Hi, I'm Christy at the Bureau, and let's start by taking a look at where Mila was situated last night. Now, last night, ex-tropical cyclone Mila was over the northern Coral Sea, well off the coast of Queensland. But through the overnight and morning period, the system has moved closer to the coast. But you can see how it's really broken up as it moved close to the coast and developed into an extended area of low pressure. As we go through the rest of today, that low pressure trough will move slowly closer to the coast. We will see showers increasing along the coastal region from about the Whitsundays north to the tip of the Cape York Peninsula. There is the potential also for some thunderstorms. These are most likely along the coastal fringe and most likely through the later afternoon and into the evening. We're also expecting to see showers starting to push into the central parts of the Cape York Peninsula late tonight. But as we move through tomorrow, that system will make its way across the Cape York Peninsula. We'll continue to see showers and thunderstorms along the North Tropical Coast, but they'll also extend right across the peninsula into the northern goldfields and upper Flinders and also parts of the Gulf country and the Gulf of Carpentaria. On Thursday, the system will continue to move towards the Northern Territory. We will see quite widespread showers and thunderstorms through northern Queensland, including into the central west and northwest districts, and also into eastern parts of the Northern Territory. So how much rainfall are we expecting with this system? Well, let's take a look at the rainfall between this morning and the end of Friday. We can see a quite widespread yellow and orange areas. Now these are the areas where we could see between about 20 and 70 to 80 millimetres. And you can see that it's quite patchy, and that's because there will be areas of heavy showers and thunderstorms embedded within the moderate rainfall. So some of those heavier falls might be a bit hit and miss. However, we have had a lot of rainfall over northern Queensland in recent weeks, including from Tropical Cyclone Narelle. So these catchments are very wet, and any of those heavy showers or thunderstorms that develop could cause localised flash flooding and also some river rises. However, it's really the North Tropical Coast where we're most concerned about the risk of flash flooding with thunderstorms, and you can see these purple and red areas showing where we could see 1 to 200 millimetres or even a little bit more if we see a series of thunderstorms moving over the same area. Now, not only is this the area that's most likely to see flash flooding associated with heavy showers and storms, it's also the area most likely to see riverine flooding, and a flood watch has been issued. Now, this is for the Daintree and Mossman rivers up in the north, the Mulgrave and Russell rivers around Cairns, and also the Tully, Herbert and Murray rivers down further south. This is most likely for minor flooding, but there is the potential to approach the moderate flood level if we see some of the higher end rainfall that is possible. So if you live in northern Queensland or know somebody who does, it's going to be really important to stay up to date with the latest forecasts and warnings on the Bureau's website or the Bomb Weather app. As always, follow all advice from your local emergency services, and please stay safe.
And welcome back to our new segment. It's this week, Tuesday, Thursday, and hopefully it will expand to Monday to Friday. It's called Forum. So we're just going to share ideas, have different views, maybe get our blood rushing a bit. The idea is to have a candid conversation about what's good for us, what's good for Australia, what's good for regional, rural, and outback areas of this great country. The global crisis created by war in the Middle East has profound implications for food security in Australia as elsewhere, and governments must act urgently to ensure people have access to healthy foods, according to food policy expert Dr. Nick Rose. We did invite Dr. Rose to participate, but we didn't hear back. Maybe we'll try again next time. Hello, Dr. Rose. Now, Dr. Rose warns that food insecurity is a national security risk and makes a series of recommendations for government, including support Australian farmers to transition to climate resilient and regenerative farming, reducing dependence on large volumes of imported inputs, increase job seeker above the Henderson poverty line, that's a good idea, prioritise healthy food above all, treat market gardens and community gardens as essential infrastructure, and introduce a universal healthy school meals program. Guarantee access during times of acute shocks like right now by establishing strategic food reserves and diversifying supply chains. All good ideas. Now, most of this seems fine, so we'll speak to some experts over the next few months to learn just what it is that Australians must do to enhance our systems of food production, distribution and consumption to ensure we don't face a growing catastrophe while we watch the decimation of our agriculture and food production systems. Now, a guest, Penny Scott. Now, Penny Scott is Business Development and Communications for Ori Co-op, and Michael Gooden is proprietor of Willow Wee and founder of Growers Hub. First of all, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
Yep. First of all, I'll start with you, Penny, if you don't mind. What's your views on that report?
Oh, I think Nick is all over it like a rash. And he's been a leader in a lot of these policy developments over many years. And he knows his stuff. It's a matter of convincing authorities to take notice. Now, in Victoria, they are light years ahead of most of the other states in terms of funding and supporting through infrastructure the establishment of lots of kitchen gardens, lots of community gardens, and therefore people have much greater access to developing knowledge about how to grow food.
What do you think, Michael? Because I see, and it's sort of a roundabout thought here, but I see government on one hand saying that we all need to eat well, and I see that they don't do a whole lot for the cost of fruit and veg, and I see that the quality of fruit and veg in many cases is not that great, and government could ensure that it is better, cheaper, and that it will help this country grow to be a healthy nation. Do you think government's doing enough?
Yeah, it's a difficult position for the government in a lot of ways. Like, ultimately, the government's not the one picking up the piece of fruit off the shelf and buying it, consuming it. I think we underestimate the power of the consumer in this situation. So, you know, in our situation, we're involved in a local grower hub here in Wagga. You know, it's a choice that people are making to come in and shop in that venue, and you know, that's the power of the consumer. I see is where it's at. It's great to get, you know, the health guidelines and that type of stuff from the government, but the health guidelines aren't saying, you know, you've got to buy local. They're just saying, you know, have X amount of servings of fruit and veg and, you know, meat and that type of stuff a week. And thankfully, those guidelines have been changed a little bit now to actually reflect what a modern diet is, not what they sort of have been for quite some time. So, yeah, it's an interesting space, that.
Penny, tell us what you're involved with. It's very interesting, and then I'll ask the same question for Michael.
I originally trained as a naturopath back in my breeding days of 5 boys, and I wanted to... I still don't have a nervous twitch. It's all good. And I wanted to make sure they didn't get sick. I didn't want to be one of those mothers who was always running to the doctor because they had a sniffy nose or something. So I became a naturopath. I studied that to learn about what is optimum health and what do you need to do to achieve that status so that your immune system is as strong as it possibly could be. And through studying naturopathic medicine, I learned so much and applied it. And So that has been the basis for me being an absolute advocate for food without synthetic fertilizers, toxic chemicals, or genetic modification. It's about having food available for all people without these inputs, and also to educate people that ultra high processed foods are just appalling. They minimize the capacity of our immune systems, and due to the diets in Australia, and it's interesting you raised that whole thing about health warnings and health guidelines and things. Well, follow the money. But I heard a report not long ago that more than 50% of Australia's population is diagnosed with a chronic disease. Now, for me, that to me is just appalling. And that actually limits the country's potential. But how did they get to that state? How is it that more than 50% of the population are on medications for chronic diseases? That's where I think we need to be going to find that out.
Michael, tell me about your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I agree to a certain extent with what Penny's saying. I think ultimately we got to transition our modern farming practices to have a focus on, rather than just producing quantity, but we've got to be thinking about quality as well. Certainly from a broad acre grain perspective, we grow 20, 30 million tonnes of wheat, but do we need to be growing that amount? Could we be growing less and having it higher quality? And also, how is that being used? Is it the most efficient use of that plant by then feeding it to an animal that's in confinement? Like, should we be just doing that out on grass? I think the quality of food's really important. And if you the thing that's really exciting with some of the areas that we're working in is if you change your production system a bit, you improve the health of the soil that you're farming, and then you're improving the quality of the produce that's coming off that, and then that's flowing then into the unintended impact out of that, which is a real benefit, is improving the health system as well. So there's these win-win-wins, in the environment, the profitability of the farmers that are doing it, and the health of the produce coming off it. So it's if we made some changes to it, we could have a really great outcome. But it's sort of helped back to my first point. I think we don't want to underestimate the importance of the consumer making those decisions about, when they're deciding where they're going to get their produce from. They're in a really powerful position.
It's very interesting. I think we have at the moment fruit and veg is enormously expensive, and you look at what's happening in the supermarkets and then look what's happening in the paddock. It's going to go up and up and up. How do we whether it's at a market or whether it's in the supermarket, how do we maintain some sort of semblance of normality when it comes to the price? Because if it goes up, which it will, and if the current situation with Australia going through just tottering on a recession, and with the cost of fuel and stuff, it's going to place a lot of pressure on families, isn't it, Penny? How do we keep things at a level that's acceptable to all?
Well, you've got so many different groups of people. As when we say cost of living crisis, well, it's different for a 17-year-old than a 25-year-old, than a 37-year-old with 3 kids. Or somebody who's 52 and then somebody who's retired. So the food is definitely a critical component of all that. However, when you look statistically and historically, food has never been cheaper than it is now for the past 10 years. And that's because of globalisation. It's because of cheap fossil fuel, and also because the major food distributors, such as supermarkets, do not add on their externalities. And what I mean by that is they do not pay for pollution. And so the prices that you find in supermarkets are abnormally subsidised, or they're not paying the full cost of what it takes to produce food. I think Mike's a really good one to answer this, because he's at the Growers Hub every week. And Michael, you can talk about what the prices are there and how many people are coming to buy those beautiful products.
Michael?
Yeah, well, I mean, from our own perspective, we're selling grass-fed beef at the market, and we're pretty cost competitive with what you would buy beef from at a local supermarket and or butcher. In our situation, we're that animal's being born and raised on our property. We're taking it down, being slaughtered, and coming back and then selling it. So we can do that. We can be cost competitive in that situation because we're capturing the wholesale and the retail market in that space. That's probably not really practical at a real macro scale, but you could do it at a lot bigger scale than what we're operating at and still keep that genuine paddock to plate experience happening. One of the interesting things that for us, and I can only use the examples that we're exposed to, but at the moment, it's probably costing us $10 a kilo to sort of slaughter the animal, pay ourselves fair market value for the animal, slaughter it, and then getting it through to the butcher and back into the fridge in the market. We're probably talking at $15 a kilo just for whatever type of meat it is. So then when I go into a supermarket or butcher and I see sausages for $8.99 or $12 or whatever, well, you have to think, well, that can't be meat in that. It can't all be meat because there's no way that they're paying the farmer the fair market value for the animal and then paying the wages of the people that are dealing with it to get it into that state. So, it's a really interesting space, knowing what those costs are. Our high-end meat sells for far more than that, but we sell our mince and sausages for $25 a kilo. And for us, it's a real, we want good quality food to be affordable for everyone. We don't want people to be able to say, look, we can't afford to eat good quality food. The example I've been given over the years is, if you think about what would actually cost, for high quality potatoes compared to French fries at a local takeaway outlet, well, they're paying $70 a kilo, and you can buy the best quality biodynamic potato for $30 a kilo. So that is a choice that people make. Same thing for meat as well. So I think it gets down to that choice that people are making and understanding where their food's coming from.
Yeah, my wife and I we took Penny's advice, and we had that, I have to go to Coles, and we didn't do it. I said, no, think what Penny would do. So we didn't even go to Woolworths or IGA. We went to the Ferry Road Market on the Gold Coast. It's only small, but I have to tell you, we compared some of the price of things there. It was a third cheaper than Coles. And the food, the meat was magnificent. That was a little bit dearer, but you knew what you were eating, and it was fantastic. We used to have, had once upon a time had the most secure food systems in the world. What's going on? Why haven't we got that now, Penny?
Let's have a look at how free trade agreements work. Let's have a look at how multinational corporations control so many of the food supply chains. And it's a very dominant, and they make a lot of money out of it. And so they don't want anything to change. The power of the lobby in parliaments is huge. And we, the small scale growers, the little people in this whole food business thing, don't get a look in because the power of the lobby is so huge and it's been there for decades. So the narrative that they peddle, these lobbyists representing Cargill's, Tees, JB Swift, they're just some of the meat people. The narratives they spin to the politicians, who tend to be a little gullible, I have to say, is that to have food security, well, you need us. So we're the most efficient system on the planet, and you'll just keep supporting us. And they do that to the point where food safety rules are changed. And I have seen this, whereby a small-scale abattoir, multi-species abattoir, will have to pay the same compliance rates as a an abattoir that can process 5,000 chickens in an hour, such as Steggles. It's all done by machine. Whereas the hand killing and the hand eviscerating and processing of chickens, which might be 500 in a day, pays the same compliance rates as that big system. So follow the money, and that's where you'll find how a lot of the decisions are made.
Michael, because we had one of the most secure food systems in the world. We're very proud of it. Where do you see it's gone wrong?
Yeah, I mean, from a beef perspective, we export sort of 30-40% of our beef. So so our local market like that is, we do certainly supply that. But in saying that, like a lot of the animals, like we would export, you know, a lot of our lower value cuts. So an animal might be processed here in Australia, you know, the eye fillet and Scotch fillet is probably sold here locally because our domestic market can afford to buy that. But a lot of our lower value cuts would be shipped off into other markets. So, you know, in some ways that's in the best interest, but the grower's probably not really seeing the reward for that. The middleman and the abattoirs themselves and the meat traders are probably picking up on a bit of that. It's happened with a lot of the stuff, you know, a lot of the fuel security, the fertiliser, a lot of our machinery parts, all that stuff. You know, I used to manufacture a lot of stuff here in Australia. That's just the global world that we're living in, like that. I think, you know, if anything's good that can come out of the current situation at the moment, it is, you know, can we get back to a state that we are a bit more self-sufficient like that? You know, what do we have the desire to want to be able to do that, to be able to manufacture or refine fuel onshore and or fertiliser that we need onshore? And then, you know, can we change our production system so we're not reliant on some of the external inputs as well?
And it's you're right. The cost to it goes up. I mean, everything goes up, just keeps going up, and it's got to stop somewhere. But on the land, how do you? This is for you, Michael. How do you feel about? I mean, is it impacting you with the fuel going like that, fertilizers going like that, and then you see government? We're going to where are we off to now? Off to probably Uranus or somewhere. To get fuel. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. Oh, we should have stored that. Oh well. And then the big hoo-ha about those 3 ships coming from the US with all the fuel. That was the stuff that we had as our backup. It's probably all gone now. So how do you feel, Michael, about this? Do you think that we sometimes get the politicians and some of the bureaucrats out on the land a bit, spend a month or 6 weeks, probably 8 weeks, might show them a little bit, and say, this is the real world, this is how it operates, because if you don't have fuel, if you don't have your fertiliser, contrary to what you might think, they don't grow the product in the supermarket. And we're not going to have it. So how do we get through, and I won't say numbskulls because I'll get into trouble, but you know, some would say that, the numbskulls. How do we get through that piece of bone that surrounds the brain that says, to point out that they need to really, really do the homework and look after the farmer, look after the country, and make sure we have enough fuel, make sure we have fertiliser at a good price and fuel at a good price, because otherwise, when they pop into the supermarket, they'll be shocked because they won't see anything there.
Well, I think there's 2 parts to it, and you know, without scaremongering, I think it actually would be good to a certain extent if there was a few bare shelves here and there to actually wake up some of the shortcomings of our current supply chains. And no doubt, like there is going to be an impact with some of the fuel, probably more so the urea shortages, I think. But I think taking a step back and actually looking at your whole production system and saying, look, what can we do in our production system to reduce the externalities? Like how much diesel do we need to be using? How much synthetic fertilisers do we need to be using? Can we be using them in a more efficient way? So, you know, in our own business, you know, we are all beef cattle. We don't use a lot of fuel as such on farm. We're not, you know, sowing crops or harvesting crops and cutting hay, all that type of stuff. We sort of say our cattle are solar cattle rather than diesel cattle. But we still do need a certain amount of diesel, don't get me wrong, to get them to and from abattoirs and to and from the market, that type of stuff. The beef industry uses a reasonable amount of diesel, not probably the same amount per hectare that the cropping guys would. But then certainly the fertiliser inputs as well. We've made some significant changes to the way we manage our land to reduce our reliance on synthetic inputs. We use a little bit here and there, but certainly not the amounts, again, that the same as the cropping guys would be using. And that's a choice that we've made as a business. What can we control, and then what is external to us. And so we've been, we can't control the weather, so I don't spend any time worrying about it. We can't control what the markets are doing, so we try and exclude ourselves as much from that market. I can control the price I put on the piece of meat that I sell at the growers hub, so we can sell into that market. We've also got a cattle stud. I can control the price that I can sell our bulls for within reason, so we can do that. It's about, control the controllables in that situation. And, we're just any other farmer like anyone else. And over the last sort of 15 years have made steps towards being more in control of our own business than not. So I can't see why a lot of other people couldn't make steps in that direction. I think I'd like to think that this is a bit of a wake-up call, but, it was only 21 or 22 the last time fertiliser went through the roof that my phone started ringing and saying, look, how do we reduce our reliance on MAP or urea? And the best way to do that is to start 5 years ago and start weaning yourself off some of those products. Like if you just try and go cold turkey about it, you'll actually end up doing more damage, than you sort of a bit of hysteria, like what happened in Sri Lanka there a few years ago. And everyone sort of says, look, you can't go organic, you can't feed the world if you do that. But if you went about it the right way, you'd feed the world, you'd feed the world a lot better quality food, and you probably do it on half the cost type of stuff. So, there's ways to go about it, but you have to go about it the smart way rather than, just say, look, all of a sudden we don't have urea or we don't have MAP. And diesel's the big one because, our country genuinely runs on diesel. Like I live on a national highway, and the trucks that are rolling along there, for some reason they think it's a great idea to grow tomatoes in South Australia and sell them into Sydney. And every 9 minutes there's a big truck that runs past out the front of our place carting these tomatoes. And it's just madness when you think about it, but this is what we've got ourselves into.
You'd have plenty of fertiliser anyway. You just got to walk with a bucket behind your cattle. And,
we do a little bit of external fertiliser, so I don't want to be too smug, but we really in the scheme of things, it's very little. And then that's part of the strategy is with the cell grazing, we're running animals at reasonably high density, and we're getting that genuine distribution of dung out across the paddock, year on across the paddock all the time. We do have to, we put a little bit of phosphorus on, and we put a few micro elements on, but mostly it's not large amounts in the scheme of things.
Penny, what do you think? And would you like to have a few bucket loads of the end result on Michael's property?
Funnily enough, only last week I got a trailer load of aged cow manure from a local dairy for my garden. So I'm a great supporter of these natural fertilisers.
Plenty of it around Canberra. Yeah, but anyway.
And Sydney and Brisbane. I think every Parliament house there's plenty of it.
Dreadful. But what do you think, though? What do you think of what Michael was saying?
Oh, it's absolutely spot on. Michael's well-versed in and is a great thinker about systems. And we all need to become systems thinkers and understand that everything is connected and there are ramifications. So every time we put something to eat into our mouths, the choice we make about that is having an impact somewhere. Now, it can be a positive impact or it can be a negative impact. And the more we support foods which are not being bought directly from the growers, then we're having a negative impact because we don't know how those foods have been grown. And usually the people who grow the raw commodities are at the arse end of the value chain. So they don't get the financial prosperity that all those who do the value adding up the value chain, they take control of those certain processes. Then it's those people who get the money. And you probably have heard of the example of a ton of wheat to make bread, going into flour to make bread. And let's say the farmer gets $380 a tonne for that bread, which then has the capacity to make around 18,000 loaves of bread. So from $400 a tonne to, let's say, $5 a loaf. You can see what's happened to the value of that tonne of wheat. Somebody has exploited it very nicely, but the farmer doesn't have the capacity, unless they're with Oricop, of course, and organic, and we pay them. They make their price and we pay them 35% on harvest. But generally speaking, general grain growers do not have that option. So where is the value? Who's controlling those middle bits? We hear about the middlemen. Well, they want stuff as cheap as possible. It's not about making sure it's a high quality and a high value and a highly nutritious product at the end. And there's a technical term for some of this, and it's called cheap shit.
And I agree with you. And that's, I think, what makes the world go round. It certainly does at the moment. Michael, can you tell me about Growers Hub, please?
Yeah, I can. So it was established in, it's based in Wagga in southern New South Wales, and it was established in back into last year, sort of October, November. And there's been a farmers market in Wagga for, a long period of time, about 20 odd years. And Penny was heavily involved with one there a few years ago. And there was a group of producers that got together and basically decided, one particular person sort of spearheaded it, Zoe Lamont, in terms of basically wanting to create a local supermarket, really. And I suppose it got to the stage where no one person had the desire or ambition, capacity to be able to do it themselves. But when we got sort of 7 or 8 growers together, and then we've now got about 15 or 20 sort of coming in, we've all been able to work together to create a space. So we've basically got a 6-day-a-week supermarket now with all your fresh fruit and vegetables, meat, dairy, ready meals, honey, drinks, a bit of chocolate, stuff like that, florists, a few other things there. And so that's now working. And most of the produce is, genuinely, local produce, which is really great. It's just about sort of the community coming together and providing the opportunity for the local people in Wagga to come and shop at a local supermarket. It's worked out really well. It's a co-op. We're renting a building as a commercial premises. And it's been going really well. Only about a month ago, it started going to 6 days a week.
And it's what Penny was talking about on our last conversation, that instead of being open for one day or one morning, if you can keep it open, for those at least 6 days, you'll start to fit in also with people's schedules. Penny, tell me about the Organic Regenerative Investment Cooperative. It's very easy for you to say.
Oricop. Say it like Oricop, yeah. And it's a cooperative made up of many, many, many organic grain growers. And we get a lot of people saying, "Oh, you can't grow grain organically and you won't make any money with it." Well, as a matter of fact, our grain growers do make good money because they set the price and get paid percentage of their harvest when it's in the bin. So we are here to help them value add. So instead of the grain, the primary produce going out to somewhere else, we in the co-op, that's our role, is to add value to these raw products. And we do that in a couple of ways. The first element has been to use the organic grains to transform them into organic poultry pellets. And tons of this stuff are sold every month. The biggest shipment goes to Tasmania every month, 26 tonnes this month. So it's sold in convenient 1-tonne bulker bags for the chook growers, the chook with eggs. But now we're branching out in another form of value adding, which is packaging. So not everybody can handle a bulker bag, a ton. So we are working with another mill, certified organic mill, to decant these pellets into 25 kilo, 20 kilo, 10 kilo bags. So then it means they're available for the retailers and for consumers to buy directly. That's just, even the packaging is a form of value adding. So we do that for our members. And then we have lots of human grade grains and pulses. And so once again, packaging into those smaller dimensions makes them more available for customers and also bakeries. So we have an inquiry from Far North Queensland for organic wheat and rye, so they can use it in their bakery, their bespoke bakery. And this is not unusual. So now we're starting to get these inquiries rocking in. And we're doing the value adding on behalf of our members.
It seems like there is change in the wind, and I think maybe because of the current, I suppose, fuel fertiliser crisis in the Middle East, that has got something to I would imagine, to get everybody to get up on their horse and do something. But I've got to ask you this, Michael. I mean, at my shopping centre, which I don't go to much because the wife does it for me, she's a good dear, isn't she? But there's a fruit and veggie greengrocer there, and he has some nice fruit and veggies. Another one down the hallway near Woolies. He's a Chinese one, but yeah, same sort of thing. What's the difference with these than what you have at the moment with your hub?
Probably not a lot, to a certain extent. Like a lot of the fruit and veg that we supplying, there's a fruit and veg, a couple of different people doing fruit and veg at the hub. And the difficulty with the fruit and veg is that the consumer, Coles and Woolies did a really great job of training someone to want to be able to buy an avocado or a banana every day of the week or every month of the year. And the reality is they're seasonal products, and they're not necessarily available every day of the week or week of the year. So, and this sort of convenience that people want, they want to be able to buy stone fruit out of season and whatever. I think we need to ideally say, well, look, let's just buy what's in season. You can extend the fringes of the season with a hothouse, a few different things here and there, but you shouldn't be able to get a banana every week of the year or an avocado every week of the year. It's just not realistic. I mean, some of the leafy greens and that, you can manipulate things. There's a bit of technology around it to be able to do that. For me personally, the adage I like to think is, has that plant been grown in soil? Like if it's a hydroponic setup, it's food, but it's not really. You really don't want to be putting into your body. If it's been grown in soil, then it's actually, it's a live plant. Once you start understanding the complexities of soil biology and all the phytochemicals that happen in the communication going on between the plant and the soil, like there's a lot that happens in that space that we don't. I get really worried if you're trying to grow something in a hydroponic medium or a glasshouse medium. What are you really missing out on? You might be able to produce something that looks good. You've got a reasonable shelf life, but is it actually going to provide you with the nutrition that your body needs for that period of time? So I see, for me, the order of priority, getting back to answering your question, would be, number one would be grow it yourself. Number two is know the person who grew it. Number three is, it's a local business that's going to be providing local jobs into that community, and they're producing locally, or at least as much as they can locally and seasonally. And then, number four is you couldn't care less where it's coming from, type of thing. So that priority is, and I think, if the more that people, even if it's a bit of basil, a bit of mint or something like that, is if you can grow something, you get an appreciation for what's going on and what you're putting in your body. That can then flow on to the other choices that you make as a consumer.
Just one thing, Michael, have you noticed a change for the better or the worse? I mean, you look like you're in your 30s. Sorry, I'm being very nice there. But go back to when you were a kid. If I go back to when I was a kid, the supermarkets, they were just, it was almost jumping out at you, the fresh fruit and veg, and maybe because I grew up in Mildura. But it just felt alive. And if you go in, and Penny and I talked about this last time, if you go into a supermarket, I was talking about the organic fruit and veggies, they looked very sad. And yet the other ones, they looked all right, not great. And then when I went to the Ferry Road Market, it was just this colour. It was just amazing. But that reminded me of the olden days. Has it changed a lot in your opinion, or am I just imagining this?
Oh, I think it has, and I think like quality, like taste, is a big proxy for nutrition. You know, at the moment there's sort of talk in this space around, you know, we need nutrient density testing and that type of stuff. Like, I think your mouth and your nose is some of the best technology that we've got in terms of is something nutritious, and if it's nutritious, it'll be tasty to you. With smoke and mirrors that can be used with that sort of salt and sugar in that, we can sort of trick our body into it, but ultimately, if it looks good and it tastes good, well, then it probably is good for you. So I think using that as a proxy, I mean, I think it'd be great if we can go down that path of actually having a nutrient density testing on, you know, all the product, fresh fruit and vegetables, meat, all that stuff. I think that'd be really great. The reality is, I think there's going to be some really big headwinds in that space to allow that to happen. Like, it's hard enough to get something declared that it's actually even made in Australia, let alone that it's, you know, not made in Australia and it's pretty poor quality. So, like, I think it's going to be a really big pushback in the supermarket space to do some of that testing. For us, we're kind of going to be quite proactive in that space, and we're sort of making attempts now to, you know, test our meat to show and prove the quality of it. It already tastes really good. We sort of know that, and our customers tell that every week. But yeah, to actually get that next step of, you know, 200 grams of this meat will be the equivalent of 300 grams of something else. That'd be really great. We're not quite there yet.
I totally agree with you. Penny, where to now? How do we bring about change?
One of the things we're doing at Oricob is starting a program, a campaign on food literacy. And it's sadly missing because it's something that Mike mentioned before with the tomatoes, this substantial equivalence, which is a term used by the genetically modified organism lobby. Well, it looks the same. We've got 2 tomatoes here. They're substantially equivalent. However, one has been genetically modified with some outside species, DNA, and the other has been grown in soil. So food literacy is about understanding what the different, and I laugh because there is so much bamboozling around the food technology space. And yesterday I discovered that there are 60 names for sugar added in manufactured foods in Australia. Well, I could think of 5, but there are all these chemical put-togethers and that is basically to fool consumers that there's not that much sugar because it's a different name. If it would all had to be labelled as sugar in Heinz's tomato ketchup, which actually contains 25% sugar in various forms, people might be a little bit circumspect about saying, oh, perhaps I won't have that. That's more than the sugar I would have thought is a good thing to consume in a day. But because this food labelling rort, and it is a rort, there's fraud, absolute fraud in all this. Consumers are fooled. So that's why we want to start a course or a campaign in food literacy. And once people can make an informed decision about what they're going to put in their mouth, then things will change. They will be far more analytical and critical about what is being shown on a label. And we have so many examples of fraud in this space that they will say, perhaps I will just go to the farmer's market and I'll get a raw product. I'll be cooking from scratch rather than using these highly ultra-processed manufactured crap. It's not food, it's crap.
And I get also I don't get it. I understand that convenience, and that's why Michael with the Growers Hub, because you're open 6 days a week, it's fantastic. And Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm looking at here. You got Thursday, Friday till 6, Saturday in the morning. Stunning. And what you're doing is you're actually fitting in with people's lifestyle. Because if you look at when I'm on the Gold Coast, a place where big lips roam free, Botox and beaches, but it's a beautiful part of the world. We've got some intelligence here too. I've been told I have to do that, otherwise I do get a slapping later on. But the convenience of going to a supermarket, it's just so easy. You just hop in the car and you go there, you take a mortgage out, you walk out and you got yourself some food. We have to probably, I would think, and this is just me, I think probably need to start educating from the very grassroots back to schools. Bring in the good food eating, whatever they call it, and start saying you don't have to go to a supermarket, because what supermarkets are doing, whether it's Coles, Woolies, IGA, they advertise, and you keep doing that and doing it and doing it. People just fall into that trap of going to Coles, IGA, the supermarket, and Woolies. So we have to, I would think, educate people right at the very grassroots. And at the other part is we need to make sure that the perception of you got to pay an arm and a leg for that thing because it's from an independent growers hub or something. We have to also educate people that it's not going to be that expensive, and it is better. And as Michael mentioned, instead of having 300 grams of meat, or whatever it is, have 200 and have some veggies and stuff. Better food, you're going to be healthier and probably lose a bit of weight if you need to too. What do you think about that, Penny?
Oh, that's the message that's part of why we're doing food literacy. Exactly that. So the big challenge is, where do you start? And we're thinking about educating people to look at labels. And then once you look at them and you unscramble your eyes because of what you're reading on them, numbers and words that your grandmother couldn't pronounce and things you don't have in your own kitchen, then once people start analysing, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? Why are there so many numbers? Are they preservatives? Are they other forms of sugar? Are they flavour enhancers? Are they artificial colours? So these are the nuances we want to help people unfathom so they can make an informed decision and understand. And so part of this is going with educating people about our miraculous bodies and how easily we can nourish them or starve them or poison them. And that's basically what it boils down to. So food ain't food. My message is that for all Australians to have food security, we need prosperous farmers, not cheap imported shit.
Michael, you deal with a lot of bull. I wanted to use that ages ago, but I thought I'll be serious. But now that I've heard that Penny's used that word, and it's true though what Penny says. What do you think?
Yeah, well, it harks back to my initial point around the power of the consumer. Ultimately, I think one thing that the big supermarkets have done is the convenience factor. So as much as it would have been just great to say, oh yeah, come and buy your fruit on a Thursday afternoon. That's not practical. Like the modern lives that we live, you do need to be open at convenient times, and that scary stat around 70% or whatever it is, 80% of people walk into a supermarket not knowing what they're going to be buying for dinner that night. So it gets back to some of that practicality, planning your week out, like what do you need to buy if you're coming with a list. Especially in the growers hub, it's really great where some of them might go and buy some chicken, some beef, some lamb, all that, get their meat for the week, some bacon, and then get some fruit and veg and whatever. We're always trying to work in with the other vendors of what goes well with what. One of the stores I'm in is next door to a guy who grows some really high quality mushrooms, And so we always bounce off each other quite well because my mushrooms, or my meat would go quite well with his mushrooms and vice versa. So it's about sharing that. And, you know, on the Thursdays especially, you get to come in and meet the grower. So that's certainly something you can't do at the local greengrocer or the Coles and Woolies. So getting that interaction, I enjoy that. I'm glad I'm not in there the whole time, I must admit, but certainly on the Thursday afternoons, I enjoy being in there, getting to meet the customers. And you know, conversely, they love being able to meet me and knowing where, you know, how our meat's produced and where it's coming from and that it's genuinely local. I think also, like, the vision for what we're trying to do here in Wagga, we don't want it to be exclusive to Wagga. Like, ultimately, it'd be great if, you know, every 150 Ks, there was another one of these hubs and, you know, another group of farmers that sell their produce locally and you just, you know, every couple of 100 Ks, there's a little spot around so that you're not having to worry about these, you know, shipping food big miles, using lots of resources, fuel and that, the like to do that. If everyone was really local, not a lot of online stuff, like, you know, if you want to buy meat from me, you've got to come in and buy it in this local shop, then that gets you in there and, you know, exposed to some of the other producers that are in there as well. So it's genuinely going back to that local food network. And, you know, you look about that from a resource perspective, you know, from a nutrition perspective, like a fertiliser perspective, we need to try and close the loop on, in an ideal world, like, the waste facility in Wagga needs to get that phosphorus and back out onto those paddocks where their produce came from. If you're in a, you know, completely removed system like we are now, we've got all these big cities, you know, a lot of our phosphorus is ending up out in Sydney Harbour or down at Werribee sewage treatment plant, all this stuff, and we're not really closing the loop from a nutritional perspective, where this local food network's actually got the capacity to be able to do some of that. We need to be really mindful of that.
I totally agree with you. And I go back a few years now, I haven't had time. And again, you know, with everybody's in the same basket, you know, time poor, or are we? I mean, because we used to have dinner parties, and I used to love cooking. Sometimes it was okay, other times it was a disaster, but the wine was always great. I think, you know, TV, internet, mainly, I suppose, internet, TV and other things like that, sort of taken away the interaction between humans and the cooking and the food together and the sitting around and chatting and talking. Now and I'm guilty, you know, having it in front of a TV, just wolfing it down, not really caring what's in it, because you're glued to the TV or to what's online. I think we probably need a change of direction in what we're doing on this planet, because take away all the other stuff. As you said before, Michael, you can only do what you can do for yourself. And one of those things is looking after the body. I think you made reference before, Penny, this magnificent body or something. You're talking about bodies. Well, I've never been referred to in that way. But I'm working on it. But I do think that we are in a spot of bother. I think humanity is just sort of morphing into something else. I don't know what it is. What do you think, Penny, as we wrap this up?
When I say miraculous bodies, I think of the every second miracles that happen without us even thinking. I don't have to remember to breathe. I don't have to remember to blink my eyes. I don't have to remember to keep my heart beating. All these autonomic nervous system actions within our bodies happen without us knowing. If one of them stops, we do know it then. But so we have these every second miracles happening, and that's why we need to treasure our bodies and know what is going to nourish them, not poison them or starve them. So that's, I think, is a really good elemental place to start learning about our bodies and to show them appreciation. But the power of advertising is such that if it's on telly, it must be true. It must be good for you. If it was bad for you, the government wouldn't let it be sold. Well, that's a load of crock, because they're so swayed by the Food and Grocery Council and the Food Safety Australia New Zealand that it's all been realigned to follow the money, to make the money. And that's where we have to use our instincts remember what it was like. I remember dinner parties. I love them, and I still have them. And it's about having friends here, and we talk about food. Food culture to me is talking about the food. And we had this conversation the other day with a neighbour who is really good at incubating all sorts of eggs. So we were talking about different varieties of silkies and different varieties of guinea fowl and different varieties of chooks. And she can get them all and she incubates them. So we're talking about, this is food security. This is real food security. And we've done a collective buy between a few of us to get some organic seedlings. So we've did this together. We cooperated and get one big order and share the freight. That's what we're doing. This is our food culture. And it's when we talk about it, and we do get very passionate. I know the Italians and the Hungarians and the French are really good examples of what is their food culture. They love it. They talk about it all the time. Well, around here where I live, we do that too. So how can we inspire more people to do it?
Yeah, that's probably the next conversation we should have, because how do we inspire people? But I think the thought of falling off the perch earlier than you should be some inspiration to you to eat better. And also, if you look at, I've been talking about beef barbecues. I mean, that used to be the staple diet of Australians, barbecue. And I still do. I walk past Bunnings and my tongue hangs out and I can, nothing like it. But a barbecue, I mean, they don't seem to be that popular anymore. But I think, Michael, when you grew up, backyard, you have a barbecue. It's just so easy. And now it's that, that, what I call it, the hairdryer, the air fryer. That's what it's called. The hair dryer. But it's taken over from the barbecue, and it's probably healthy, but it doesn't bring you together as a human species, because you throw it in there, push the drawer. My wife does this, by the way. I just push the thing, and you forget about it. So I think we need to probably have a discussion on how to become a little more, not Australian, but just humans.
Mike, can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
You visit Wagga and the Growers Hub, because the barbecue there will revive your memories and tantalize your taste buds.
I won't leave it.
So often it's Michael's beautiful beef on the barbie, and people come for that alone because it's so good. We've got free-range bacon, pastured eggs. So the egg and bacon rolls are legend, and local baker making the rolls. So everything has provenance. You can say, well, that came from here, and then throw a few of the gourmet mushrooms in as well. It's a revelation to your taste buds. And then you sit down with that and have a coffee from the little barista, and you're in this beautiful community of people who are equally as passionate about the food as you are. And they make it a priority to shop there. And there's something magic in the air, I'm quite sure.
Yeah, I agree. Michael, the all-important question, because you are a man who knows his meat, knows his beef and a barbecue. What sort of wine should you have with your beef?
Yeah, good wine is important, I suppose. I don't drink a lot myself, I must admit. But I do love a glass of red with a nice meal. And actually, the other day I had the privilege we were down at Robinvale, and there's a beautiful winery down there, the Robinvale Biodynamic Winery, and I had a really great Cab Sav from there. It was like probably 2015 or 16. It was quite good value, but it was absolutely delicious. And the thing about this was some of our own homegrown meat that we'd cooked on the open coal barbecue with drinking some wine with a beautiful group of people I just spent a week with, and without romanticising it, but that's what it's about. Like, it's about good quality food, good wine, good company. And that's the type of experience we try and create at the Growers Hub. It's more than it's an experience that you come down, you get to meet the growers. There's usually some other friends there. It's an experience. It's an outing. And there's usually a fair few kids running around, that type of stuff. And so that's what it's about. It's about creating that community. That's what we can do. That's what our sort of competition can't. So, you know, we need to draw on those strengths like that. But yeah, certainly it is. It goes hand in hand.
It does indeed, and I would imagine there would have been a few Italians amongst those people with the red wine and the barbecue, because that's what we used to have. I mean, we were surrounded by, we're like in Little Italy in Mildura or Silesia, and we had all the 20-acre blocks or 23-acre blocks around us, and on a Sunday after church, you'd smell the bread in the oven, the outdoor oven, and then you'd have lunch with them all. There'd be all the families there. My first time of drinking grappa. My only time of grappa was when I was 15. My dad was a cop, by the way. Good on you. But then, and it was like, man, oh man, it was never again. Look, we do have to wind it up. I have had a magnificent time. I appreciate both of you from your knowledge and your encouragement for us to start to enjoy life and enjoy food. Get back to the basics. And I would like to do this again, if you don't mind, and we'll have one other person with us, and we can talk about it and talk about food and how good it is, not just for your bodies, but for your psyche and for the community and for Australia. Penny, if somebody wants to find out more about what you do, how do they do that?
I have an email, which is orca@organicinvestmentcooperative.com.au.
Thank you so much. And Michael, how do they find out more about the Growers Hub and Willowee and suggestions on where they can get some of the plonk you had in Robinvale?
Yeah, well, I suppose I wouldn't say I'm illiterate on social media, but I'm not a big fan of it. But yeah, there's certainly an Instagram and Facebook page with the Growers Hub. I'm not 100% certain of the address, but you'll find it there somewhere. And we do have our own website and that, but that's by the by. Yeah, I mean, the best thing you do is come down and have a conversation. That's where it happens.
Absolutely.
And conversely, go down to your local butcher or your local green grocer there, wherever you are, and have the same conversation. Walk into the butcher and ask them, where is their meat coming from? Is it are they doing whole bodies or aren't they, or where do they get it from? If they draw a blank, well then they might be saying, well, that's a good question. Where do we get it from? And then just a bit more accountability like that.
Absolutely brilliant. We can do more of this. We'll have some more graphics up and stuff like that. And maybe we take some calls. We might get that working there. That'll get Jen going. Get those phones working. Penny and Michael, thank you so much for your time. Thank you to our audience. This is our first of many panels. As I said, we will do this eventually every night, talk about issues that concern people on the land, concern people in regional areas, rural areas and the outback, and start talking about what makes this country tick. Thank you so much for your time. This is the show, by the way. It's called Forum, and this is the Country Telegraph. Have a good one.